Connect with Chris, realchrisable.com. You can grab him online on the socials, Real Chris Abel as well, Krisabel. Now, Chris, you have to understand, he does love the costumes. He's showed up with a treasure hunter before, and he's showed up in all kinds of different costumes with the Olympics. I didn't need to show up in the airflow tight ski suit today, Chris, but I appreciate the effort.
Yes, it's one of the things I noticed. I was thinking about it throughout my career. Anytime I've done a story on the Olympics, it's always the Winter Olympics. And I thought that was because I'm Canadian and we tend to love our winter sports. But I'm realizing that that's when a lot of these sports companies will test out their new technology, because the Summer Olympics have far much more prestige. You don't want to make any mistakes. So if you're going to test out something new, you're going to test it out in the Winter Olympics. So when I look back at my career, it's like, oh, right, yeah, I'm always sort of skiing in a wind tunnel somewhere with, okay, that's why.
Well, this is where we go to start here. New tech at the Olympics, which I think is super fun. A little confusing, too, because some of the TV companies said, we're not going to make 8K TVs anymore. And yet you've got all this super fancy technology that's saying, we're going to record this stuff in 8K, which I guess helps for zooming, I suppose. But what's going on in the world of tech? Because I think this is really a neat story that is a positive tech story, not soccer teams spying on each other with drones like we saw a couple years ago.
Typically, when there's new technology introduced to measure the performance of athletes, it's usually for the benefit of the athletes who are in training. And that's partly true. There are now all these little sensors that get placed on the equipment of the athletes. So there are now sensors that are placed on the skis of skiers as they launch off of a platform that can measure wind speed and all sorts of aerodynamics and stuff like that. Yes, that's partly true. But this year, all this new technology enhancement for measuring the performance of athletes is to the benefit of judges. What they want is a 21st century version of a photo finish. So, the days where you'd have two horses or two people crossing a finish line and one camera take a photograph just as they cross that finish line, you can see who won by a nose. Well, today, now when athletes are crossing that finish line, you have like 8 or 14 8K cameras that are all positioned not only to look at what's happening on the finish line, but to look from every angle that's around. And so the idea is that you're capturing a person when they cross that finish line. Those cameras are taking 40,000 frames per second.
Oh, my.
Yes, which means when judges get the results, we're talking about a millionth of a second in terms of determining who crossed that finish line first.
Oh, man, can we get this in the NHL for some of the offside calls that are bad or the goals? This would be great stuff. Okay, so this is neat because I think that's one of the cool things about the Olympics or these international sporting events generally. They tend to lean into it to promote it, like, look at all the fancy tech we have. And they'll use the photo finish as the, let's look at the photo finish. And this is kind of cool to be able to see it. And I'm sure that, I don't know, the X-ray technology, see where everybody is on the, I don't know, I'm making stuff up because I think it's really fun to be able to see this technology in action on these moments that decide the outcome.
Yes, because part of it is they are going to now measure things down to just incredibly impossible margins. So one of the measurements that they can get from the judge's point of view is that when you have figure skating, which is the big, huge event in winter sports, not only can they measure how fast a figure skater has moved or performed their routines, but they can actually measure the angle that the skate is positioned at on the ice. So when they're taking a look at two performances, they can tell when one figure skater is a little more straight on the ice than the other one. They can also measure whenever you see a figure skater do those rotations or spins, they can now measure how close that actually was a 360-degree spin as opposed to a 359.5-degree spin.
Wow.
So you can now disqualify spins and rotations in figure skating at a degree that you never could have done before. So this is going to be an astonishing thing. But also you have all these sensors, you have all these cameras, all these radar systems that are capturing the performance. Now you're getting a level of intimacy that we've never had before, and that it's scanning the athletes. So when you get to that photo finish, immediately you also get a computer model of exactly that performance. So not just having to look at the video footage of the performance, but you can actually spin from every angle, look at it from every possible view. And then gamers are going to understand this. They can also superimpose that over a ghost image of their previous run on that,
wow.
competition, or a comparison against some of the great athletes throughout history, which is really great. Part of this, in terms of having all this measuring equipment, is not just to build up judgments for this year's event, but it's to build up a database of history, because more and more we're now starting to compare today's athletes with the performances from yesterday's athletes in terms of who is setting a new record.
It's interesting to think of all the things athletes have to think about when it's that small of a fraction. It's like F1, right? They're like, totally. You have to find a 1/10 of a second in order to win. And it's, how do you, like, that's just a burp in the road. It's craziest thing. Okay, Chris Abel is here. Let's keep the Olympic conversation going, because there's a robot. They did a little stunt to promote how great their robot was with the Olympic logo. What's that one?
It's a company called Unitree, one of the big major Chinese companies that are producing humanoid robots right now. And so they've taken their major humanoid robot called the G1, and they shipped him off to a very remote location out in the middle of nowhere in northern China. This is where you have large, vast plains of beautiful snow with mountain peaks in the background. And they decided to set G1 to go walk out into the middle of one of these plains and then stomp its feet around to stomp out the Olympic logo. In fact, at a huge size, about 700 feet large in size. This is to show off two things. One is that their G1 humanoid robot can perform in extreme winter. You're talking about minus 53 degrees Celsius. Insane. And then also, as we Canadians know, it's not easy walking in the snow. And so if you're trying to show off how well your humanoid robot can walk, having it trudge through all these snowbanks was one way to kind of show it off. I love the fact that when they sent the G1 humanoid robot out there, they actually gave it a little red parka jacket to wear. Not that it needs to wear it, but just for a little bit of style as it's roaming out into the snow. It did an amazing job in creating this very detailed image. I don't have any information, but I imagine that the location that they chose wasn't just this beautiful place for the cameras to capture, but it's probably in the flight path of a lot of passenger airplanes going by over top above. Right, because I mean, it's
smart.
Isolated area. There's nobody else out there who's going to see this. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if there's a lot of Chinese passenger planes who are going to capture it.
Oh, this is good marketing, actually. Very well done. Okay, we have about 1 minute, Chris. It looks like there was a robot screwed up at Honda.
Yes, this is a new way of things being screwed up. So Honda's done a recall for their cars. They said there was a problem, an installation problem. Usually it's a design flaw in a product. In this case, a robot on the assembly line got confused, and this is the key word, decided to do something different than it's supposed to do. It's supposed to tighten the bolts on one side of the driver's seat car to affix it into place. Instead, it got confused and went, you know what? I'm going to do these bolts, and instead of tightening them, I'm going to loosen them up. And so all these cars came off the line, and the driver's seats were now far loose and less secure than they should have been. It took a while for somebody to catch on to this so they could stop and then go back and then try to redo all these cars. But this is a new type of problem that Honda and other car companies haven't had to deal with, which is your robots deciding to do the wrong thing. Not a problem in terms of design or mechanics, but like a human laborer making the bad choice. The difference is that human laborers often would realize the mistake they've made and they'd correct for it. Whereas a robot, once it's committed, it's just going to do that again and again and again.
You know, it's going to be the conversation next, Chris, is going to be like the 4-day work week for robots so they don't rebel and turn the screw the wrong way.
Yeah.
So, got to care for the robots too. Chris Abel is here, realchrisabel.com. Thank you, brother. Great to see you.
All right. Take care.